archives of Prasar Bharati presents the timeless treasure of golden era.
We welcome you to our program Welcome to Studio One.
Warm welcome to all our listeners from the studios of All India Radio. We are indeed delighted to have a voice that made a kind of a history on the airwaves of India, I should say. And that voice is of Yuri. What? You thought Yuri, the first man who made it to space? Well, that was the Russian astronaut. This voice is an Indian voice, a voice that started its career with the Indian Air Force and then made history in space to be the first voice that spoke to astronaut Rakesh Sharma when he had gone up in space. Am I right, Yuri?
A little far-fetched there, no. Mrs. Gandhi was the first voice to have spoken to
All right.
Rakesh Sharma.
You were the one maintaining communication with that voice.
Well,
Yes. Now, the reason we have called Yuri to our studios is that he's a man with a terrific voice who was in the Indian Air Force. And then something came over him and then he decided to make some very, very bold and unconventional career choices, something that was unheard of at that time. Tell us how you plotted your career after that.
after I came out of the Indian Air Force, retired prematurely, having flown fighters for 21 years, very satisfactory innings in the Indian Air Force, I wanted to do something entirely different. Aviation was one option that I had, but I thought I'll do something else. And I was very keen on getting into the world of entertainment. It wasn't very easy in those days, just like it is not very easy now to get into the world of entertainment. You have to have some kind of talent. I didn't have anything like that. All I knew was how to fly a jet fighter plane. But fortunately at that time, FM radio was starting in a big way in India. And I heard an announcement on FM radio saying, we need radio jocks. And I saw an opportunity there. I said, here, I can get a little toehold in the door, get into the world of entertainment through maybe radio. Little realizing that radio would become such a passion with me that I'll stick with it for 10 years. Anyway, so I went for that audition. And there were like 400 young kids with ponytails and ear studs. And I gave the audition along with all of them. And they picked one boy and one girl. And that boy happened to be me. I was 43 years old that time.
Yeah, 43 is pretty young.
43-year-old boy. So I became a radio jock there. And when I started doing radio, I said I don't need to go anywhere else. I mean, this really is something that I would love to do throughout my life.
But that didn't happen. Then you branched off to many other things in the world of entertainment.
Well, it so happened that having listened to me on radio, there were a few people, directors in theatre in Delhi who said, why don't you come and do a play for us? And I said, I've never acted in my life. They said, no, come.
Hold it. Now, this is getting pretty intriguing. You said you were never involved with any kind of entertainment. You've never done any kind of acting. And yet you got attracted to radio and the world of entertainment. Why? For its glamour quotient?
No, not at all. Music was a passion as far as I was concerned. From childhood, I have always played musical instruments. As a matter of fact, I had a band when I was in school. I played lead guitar. And being so involved in music, Beatles, I was so fond of the Beatles and the rock scene at that time, the Doors, the Beatles, Pink Floyd. And radio was what? A reproduction of what these guys' works were.
Did you listen to the radio when you were serving in the Indian Air Force?
I didn't have an opportunity because firstly, there was no FM radio at that time.
Okay.
There was no music that I wanted to listen to which was being relayed on radio that time. Plus, being in the Air Force, it's a 24/7 job. You don't... And those days, we didn't have cell phones and stuff where you could listen to your radio anywhere and wherever. So I had very little opportunity to listen to radio. But when I came in, fortunately, radio was being heard by many more people that time because it was FM radio. People had car radios then who they used to regularly listen to you. So the listenership of radio went up a quantum jump after I started to do radio because of technology.
But you had one added advantage. The time when you joined radio, and that happened to be All India Radio, if I remember correctly, that time AIR was the only service provider for FM stations. And you enjoyed a monopoly. Now you think that with almost 10, 11, 12 FM stations operating in one city, if it had to happen now and you got a break on any radio station, would you enjoy the same kind of popularity that you had at that time?
Well, I would say I'd enjoy the same kind of popularity amongst my niche audience. Every station plays a certain kind of sound, a certain kind of music, and it's got its own niche listenership. I don't think my listenership would go anywhere else but come back to me.
That's confidence. Okay, now you said you got offers from theatre directors and stage people saying, come and join our productions. What was it that they were attracted to? Because you say you've got no previous experience in acting. It had to do with your voice, but not just a voice, which is very good, but I guess it was a voice that could emote. It was a voice that could modulate. It was a voice that could intonate. Where does all this come to you from? Naturally, a part of your reflection of your education, something you picked up, or what?
I think it's a social skill and a people's science.
Absolutely. How
which,
beautifully you put it.
Everybody should try and develop their communication, the way they emote, the way they express themselves, because that's what voice and words are
Did
meant
Air
for.
Force have to play any role in this?
Not in the least bit. And at the same time, I would say that whatever I've learned in the Air Force is, whatever I've learned in my life is through the Air Force.
Okay.
So Air Force did have a little role in this, in the sense that we were taught to be gentlemen. We were taught to express ourselves depending on who we were talking to. When we talk to our soldiers, we are a little more assertive. When we talk to the ladies, we are so polite that butter won't melt in our mouth. It was different. I think, yes, you're right, probably. The Air Force did teach me.
I should know that
Of
because
course,
I too
of
have a
course.
forces
You're so
background
right,
behind
Kiran.
me.
Kiran, you're very right.
Yeah, but another thing I want to ask you, you can't divorce your schooling from your life. Even that plays a role all through. Which school are you from?
I went to the Delhi Public School, Mathura Road.
Okay.
That's where I started my schooling.
And you passed out from?
I didn't pass out.
Because you joined NDA.
I joined the National Defence Academy when I was just 10 classes down in Delhi Public School.
Okay.
And from there onwards, my career to go.
And you have absolutely no regrets of joining the Air Force and leaving your schooling
Not
halfway.
at all. I thoroughly enjoyed my 21 years in the Indian Air Force.
Okay.
Which young man gets to fly these supersonic fighter planes? I last flew the MiG-25, which flies at 3 times the speed of sound.
Okay. That's fantastic.
It's
That's
a
pretty
dream.
glamorous by itself.
Well, yes, it's a dream for any young man to do.
Okay. That was the excitement of the Indian Air Force that really allured you.
Yes.
Now, one question that comes to my mind is that you got offers from theatre people. And then one fine day, my friend tells me, no, my friend didn't tell me. One fine day, I'm watching the television with my mother and I see this film Jodha Akbar and I say, hello, who's that character there? I think I know him and that's Yuri. You had made it to films. And in films, you had one of the most unconventional roles. Yet again, a very unconventional career choice. You played the regent, the messenger of King Akbar.
He brought up
But
little
as far
Akbar.
as I know, when these people from the armed forces make it to movies, they're called in to do these action roles or at least script the action. How come you were called to do this historical thing?
Well, that was also battle. I was a general in the battle.
Okay, but that was an ancient battle.
General Behram Khan.
Yeah.
And the mannerism, etc., was just like an army chief. I had to command my troops. I had to fight a battle.
Okay.
I think it was very apt for what I was trained for during my life.
Okay. Are there more people in the film industry who come from a forces background?
As far as acting goes, no. There have been directors, I
I think
yes.
Bikramjit Kavarpal is there. He's from the...
Yes. There are a few directors, but nobody's broached acting.
But does the idea of directing a film, seize you ever?
Perhaps after I have had enough of acting, I'm so up to my neck into roles that I'm doing now. I've been for a very short time, 8 years that I've been in Bollywood, and I've already finished 35 movies. It does tell you that I don't get time to breathe at the moment. When I do get some free time, perhaps. I am already thinking of writing a script. I have something in my mind. When do I get down to it? That's a question.
Okay, but this is pretty unique and strange that when we talk about entertainment as a area, we say that radio comes at the bottommost rung of that. It's first movies, and then it's live shows and events, and then it's television. Radio is at the bottommost. Now here's a man who's made it to the films, and he still hankers for radio. He would love to come back to the radio. Radio doesn't have so much of glamour as much as films do. You would ideally like to stick on to movies.
Kiran, to be very honest with you, you require more skill to do radio than you would to do television. You've got only your voice as communication to get around to say whatever you have to say. Now, to reach the world with just one voice, as opposed to using your face, using your mannerism, using your body language like they do on television, requires obviously more skill. Now, where there's more skill required, I think the satisfaction out of doing that is much more. So when you do radio, you are handicapped in a sense.
Because people can't see you.
In a sense, you're handicapped. You only have your voice to reach out to them. And when you're doing a good job on radio, it is far more satisfying than doing a good job on television or on the screen. But I do agree that the recognition factor is much more when you're visible to people on television or on the big screen. So that, of course, there's a glamour quotient which is missing in radio. But if you do well enough in radio, there have been radio jocks abroad in the world who are famous like more than actors or television people.
Absolutely. But in radio, you have one advantage. You have the script with you, which no one else can see except you. And there it comes as if you're speaking off the cuff. But in films, you don't have the script in front of you. Do you have problem remembering your lines?
No, I never used a script when I was doing radio also.
And you never got into trouble for that?
No.
But you used to do a live show on radio called The Live Wire.
That's right.
And you were interacting with a lot of people, and that time it was a very, very unconventional show. Phone-in, the first phone-in of its kind.
That's right.
Did that give you an added kick, some boost in a special way?
Yeah, especially when all the young ladies used to speak to me.
And did they fancy you to be young as well?
I guess.
Okay. Now, which has been your most favourite role in the films that you've acted in?
I'll still say Jodha Akbar. After 35 films, Jodha Akbar was one of the most challenging. As a matter of fact, it was a language which I hadn't known.
Okay.
It was Urdu and Farsi mixed. Very difficult words to which I don't know the meaning of some of them even now. But it's been 8 years now that I shot that movie, but I still remember all the dialogues from it verbatim, and I can deliver them, if you wake me up in the middle of the night and say...
Which means you lived that role.
I lived that role.
You were so committed to it.
Yeah.
You say you're from the field of entertainment. What other aspects of entertainment have you touched upon? Have you done live shows, events, etc., etc.?
Not as a performer, except for my plays. I've done about 40-odd plays.
Great.
As a musician, I've not performed anywhere.
Okay.
And that's one thing that I would like to do. That's on my bucket list before I...
You are a one-man band.
No, I will collect my band and we shall perform. We shall perform.
Do you sing too?
I try to. I'm no good, but...
Look, even I'm terribly fond of the Beatles. Which is your favourite song of the Beatles?
Which album do you want? I know albums.
I don't know. My favourite song is...
Each album has...
Now, don't get ideas, okay? This is not for you. My favourite song is Words of Love.
Words of love to tell me how you feel. Yeah. But I would say my favourite song from the Beatles. It's so hard to say. It's so difficult to take out one song and say this is my favourite, because the moment you think of one song, you say, no, that one was better. And then there's another one. But I guess out of all of them, maybe Paul McCartney's Yesterday was something that I relish listening to.
I sang
every
it also
time.
in my college for the freshers.
Are you a
evening,
singer too? I've known you from my radio days, and I didn't.
And actually, Yuri, I could have gone on and on asking you questions, but let's just bring it to a close at this beautiful point, because I still remember the time when you left radio. You and me were having a Cold War. I think it was an ego clash. I don't know. Maybe you gave me a cold shoulder and I decided to give you a stiff shoulder. And today we meet after years on such a warm note.
It must have been beautiful. A winter evening and you thought my shoulder was cold. I never gave you a cold shoulder.
Okay, whatever that may be. But the fact is that right in front of me, there's my team of All India Radio sitting. And they are a part of our staff and the audience. And they would also like to put in one question to you.
Yes, of course.
They're not as close to you. They don't know you as well as I do. but still they should be given a chance. Over to them. Now we'll have the superstar Yuri answering questions posed by this young, sprightly lady who is a freelancer, journalist, a broadcaster, Akanksha.
Good afternoon, sir.
Hi, Akanksha.
Hi. Your name is something which sounds so different to me, Yuri Suri. I mean, it takes a while to sound it. I mean, how did you get this short form and...
Isn't it easy to remember?
A little tough, a little confusing, if I'm honest.
It's just a 4-letter word, Yuri, and it's very simple to remember.
Right.
And when you're doing radio, it's nicer to have a name which everybody can say with a lot of ease, instead of having to say a long word like, who's the radio jock? Akanksha.
Oh.
That's long. Yuri.
No, I have a nickname too.
Quickly call me and get it done with. Yuri is out.
Well, it would be pleasure to know about your upcoming film, sir.
I have 6 films in the pipeline. They're all under post-production now. Mm-hmm. The first one to be released possibly is on the 4th of March. There's a movie called Do Lafzon Ki Kahani.
Okay, yeah.
It's made by Deepak Tijori, and we shot it in Kuala Lumpur.
Okay.
It's an exciting movie. It's about freestyle fighting.
Oh, wow.
And that's going to be followed by Julie 2, made by the same director who made Julie 1, N. Chandra.
Wonderful.
The one after that would be Tezab. Julie 2 is not N. Chandra. Tezab 2 is N. Chandra.
Okay.
Tezab is that famous Madhuri Dixit Anil Kapoor movie.
Who can forget that
it's
movie?
not a remake of that, but it's the same director, so he's called it Tezab 2.
Okay.
Then I've got a movie called The Legend of Michael Misra with Arshad Warsi. Then there's one called Shooter.
So you're completely packed.
It's coming.
And
This year's
we,
going
the
to be
team
packed.
of All India Radio, wish you all the best for that, sir.
Many thanks, Akanksha. Thank you very much.
Yuri, the next aspirant is really a young, aspiring guy, as aspiring as you were when you were at this age, or at least when you had stepped to the radio. He's Vaibhav, a freelance broadcaster with not just All India Radio, hold your breath, he's with the BBC as well. And he's dying to pose a few questions to you.
Hello,
Please
Vaibhav.
come over, Vaibhav.
Come.
Well, first of all, sir, it's a pleasure talking to you. Welcome to All India Radio. And
Thank you.
My question would be that, for me, Yuri Suri was always India's answer to J.K. Simmons, who was the lead guy in Whiplash. I mean, you must have heard this question, I think, time and again. And what about it? Do you see any such movies being made in India? Any such powerful movies being produced in India, being promoted in India, being loved in India the way it was? And what about the character roles that you play? I mean, we've all seen 24, so what about it?
You've seen Whiplash.
I have seen Whiplash and I've
What
loved
do you
Whiplash.
think? Will the Indian audience not appreciate a movie like that?
I think good cinema is good cinema, whether it's in India or
Absolutely.
internationally.
Absolutely.
So if someone is raring to go and, someone is actually also enthusiastic enough to put their money into it, what do you think? I mean, what's the future of it? Theatre, movies?
We are evolving. If you've noticed over the last 10, 15 years, Indian movies have changed.
Absolutely.
It's no longer just romantic, running around the tree.
Running around the tree.
Things have changed to a large extent. Amitabh Bachchan has been contributory. I mean, look at the roles that he is doing now. They're no longer, movies are not focusing on a young boy and a young girl. It's an older man, a matured man, sometimes falling in love with a younger girl, sometimes with a girl who's not so young. Like, for instance, there was a movie called Chini Kam.
Chini Kam.
Nishabd, of course, he was not in love, she was in love with him. But the roles are changing. Now, character roles are coming in a much bigger way, you'll see. And the stories are not going to be just boy and girl centric, they're going to be character based. As also women based, which is also a good thing that's happening. Women are getting the center of attention. You saw Queen,
Yes,
you saw Honeymoon, kya tha wo ek aur, well, Queen was the honeymoon, but there was another one, woman centric. I'm doing a movie
Gulabi
called...
Gang was one.
Yes, Gulabi Gang. I'm doing a movie called Julie 2, where Lakshmi Rai is the heroine and there's no hero.
Alright.
It's a woman-centric thing.
So
it's a
you're
wonderful-
there, so we cannot just say that, there's no hero or,
Well, I'm not the hero, I'm the bad guy.
But
Like I
whatever it
always
is,
am. Like I always am.
That's absolutely fine.
So, but things are changing in Bollywood, and I'm sure you'll see a movie like Whiplash
being made in India,
So
being loved in
Simmons is already sitting in front
Simmons
of you.
is already sitting in front of
J.K.
me.
Simmons.
Then what about the shows like 24? I mean, that's an Indian adaptation. We see that, even Day and Night was adapted into one of the Hrithik Roshan movies. And of course, these adaptations, so-called, not exactly our own ideas. They are the ideas of someone else. They are the ideas of some other production houses which are doing exceptionally well on a global scale, earning millions together. What do you feel that, television also has to change in the same manner as films are? I mean, we don't have to go all that
Yes.
mother-in-law, daughter-in-law dramas and soap operas all the while that are going on for decades together. What do you think?
So the first thing is to try the tried and tested. Something that's already worked in the West. If you make an adaptation of that and figure it out, see if it works. And you also make some money to be able to expend for a new Indian venture, which is a original, not a plagiarized or a adapted thing. So I think it's changing very slowly, and it shouldn't go any faster because it takes a little time to build up the audience.
Well, all the best to you for your future projects, sir.
Thank you very
we
much.
Definitely
Thanks.
hope for a whiplash sort of performance. From
I
you,
appreciate that. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank
Thanks a
you for
lot.
your time, sir.
Yuri, you may be the bad guy on the screen, but over here you are not just a good guy, you're almost a superstar. I'm amazed at the number of people just queued up to ask you questions, meet you, get themselves clicked with you. But I think we can accommodate just one more person, and he happens to be our senior program officer, Mr. Sanjeev Dosaj. Over to sir.
Hello, Sanjeev. I have a friend who has the same second name as you, Kabir Bedi's wife, now wife, earlier his partner, Praveen Dosaj.
It's wonderful having you in our studio. One question which I was thinking all the while, some exceptional experience which you want to share with our listeners about All India Radio.
Exceptional experience about All India Radio. Well, there was always a race to make it to the studio because 6 o'clock my show used to start, and at 5:45, every day of my life, 24/7, not 24/7, but every day of my life that I spent in radio, I used to be here at 6 o'clock in the evening. I didn't take a day off. There were times when I used to drive from close to Panchsheel Park to the radio station to broadcast my show. And on 2 occasions, I remember there was such jams outside. Parking, of course, was another problem. When sometimes you didn't find parking, then you just left your car wherever and ran into the studio. But there was a time when I was stuck on Rafi Marg, which is almost, what would you say, about 1.5 kilometers from here? Yeah. And I was in the middle of the jam, and I was driving my own car. I didn't have a driver that I could leave it to. So I just left my car there. I ran from there to the radio station, and I reached there in the nick of time. I was still panting when I said, "Hello, Delhi." That's how it happened. And I don't know what happened to my car after that. When I went back, it was bruised a little, but I picked it up and I drove home.
So All India Radio has always been time-centric, and till today we are. And how do you have this helped you in your future career?
Well, this is not something that I learned only in AIR or in radio, but while I was flying, I had to deliver a bomb somewhere. I had to deliver it at that time. You take off at a certain time means you take off at a certain time. Punctuality was something that has been ingrained into me from the time I was in the Indian Air Force. So it's a wonderful habit. I would implore everybody to pick it up and be as punctual as All India Radio or the Indian Air Force.
So all the best from our side.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dosaj.
Thank you so much, Yuri, on behalf of all of us here at All India Radio, on behalf of all the Indian and foreign audiences overseas who are tuned into this show, and all our listeners and your fans. I'd like to thank you for coming, but I would not like to have the final word. As a parting shot, what would you like to say to all of us?
I'd like to say probably this is the first time I'm being heard by the whole world. Hello, world, and thank you very much for listening to me. I hope you continue to enjoy all the movies that are going to come out, not just with me, but with everybody else. And do look after yourself. And the last word, of course, is always be punctual. And close the show now.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.